Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are Propelled by Plants.
Today we bring to you episode 469, Workouts in 5 Minutes with Lani Muelrath.
In today's throwback episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talk with Lani Muelrath. She helps us understand that we can have successful 5-minute workouts throughout the day and still be fit. She also explains the research and ideas behind Fit Quickies and how they can benefit almost anyone. We explore why people are unable to find the time to work out and what you can start doing today. This is a fun episode, and it's going to make you want to move your body.
Lani is an award-winning teacher, author, TV host, and top plant-based vegan lifestyle coach. She's a certified specialist in behavior change, plant-based nutrition, and mindful meditation. Lani is a presenter for PCRM and has been featured on many TV shows and featured in so many magazines. She's the author of Doctor and Dietitian, the plant-based journey that was voted VegNews top media pick for 2015, and Fit Quickies 5-minute workouts. Today's show will definitely get you moving your body. Hope you enjoy these Fit Quickies.
Hey everyone, now it's more important than ever to stay close and connected to us as we're going to be making some changes here at Plant Trainers. So please head over to planttrainers.com and get our plant-based comfort foods recipe book for free. That's a $14.99 value just by signing up for our newsletter so that you can know what changes are, because we want to make sure that we stay in touch.
And now for a moment of gratitude.
I'm grateful for the experience that I had in Mexico last week, traveling down with a company that I'm part of, ASEA, and it was a reward for impacting so many people's lives, but I got to see how so many other people's lives were impacted while I was there and had amazing learning, and I'm grateful that Adam and the kids did so well while I was gone.
I'm grateful for some of our new listeners to the podcast. We still have been getting messages from our audience, and it's always nice to hear the feedback. So thank you.
We're here with Lani Muelrath. Thank you so much, Lani, for being with us today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Do you have a moment of gratitude that you'd like to share with us and our listeners?
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to thank everyone who is connected with doing away with using and eating animal products so that we can encompass everyone and all creatures of the world in how we eat and how we live. And it's just set such a good, healthy precedent for your body, for your mind, for being connected with everything in the best way possible. So I'm grateful for everyone for taking this step.
Good. And I just wanted to bring up, we had to reschedule this podcast a couple of times because you were out helping some trout. Can you tell us a little bit about that before we get into other things?
Yes, and it's a perfect example of what I was just talking about with the gratitude. And my gratitude to you for your flexibility. When I never like to have to cancel or postpone, and yet this situation, this wildlife rescue crisis came up. And of course, you were perfectly understanding and very gracious because you get this all about the animals. So yes, we live up here in the woods of Northern California, and every day we ride our bikes along the hydroelectric canals because they're in the trees and they're in the natural habitat, and they foster all these wonderful little places for animals to live. And there's this big pool of trout that's been living there, over the last year. The thing is, they drained the canal for servicing, which left this shrinking pool for over 100 trout, and we were just devastated that they weren't going to make it. So we did a rescue operation, and every day for 3 or 4 days, we were siphoning in water from another pond and pouring in buckets of water and trying to, encourage them. Help is coming, while we contacted the hydroelectric power offices, says, we cannot have this situation. What's going to happen to these trout? And we tried relocating one of them, and that's so hard on them that, we had to ride our bikes a mile down the flume, and it was jostling around and not optimal. Best thing is keeping where they are. So anyway, they finally got fished out by the service and released in this natural creek. But I tell you what, if we hadn't intervened, they just would have been, incidental to maintenance. So a word to everyone out there, just look in your own backyards. How can you make a difference with wildlife and with critters that are just presenting themselves to you for opportunity every day?
Absolutely. When we see something, we can't just be bystanders.
It's so much
Yeah.
compassion that you hear in your voice about what you're just talking about. And that's definitely part of our lifestyle. And you just mentioned the biking. So you're doing some cycling, which is part of fitness, which is another component of our lifestyle. And we know you as a plant-based fitness expert. So maybe you could tell our listeners how you got into this field.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, my background is in kinesiology, and I have an advanced degree in physical education, and I've been working as a professor in kinesiology for way back when, 19 mumble, lots of years. So my first, even though I was also a vegetarian going back those many years, which has progressed to plant-based, which has progressed to whole food vegan, which is a natural progression, I've been able to wed the two progressively together because they're such a perfect match. You guys know all about how plant foods aid in recovery. If we're just talking from the physical standpoint, and decrease negative health impacts on your body. So it's a perfect match there. So the more I was able to bring the two together with my practice and then with my books moving forward, it's just gotten better and better. So that's kind of a nutshell 40-year history.
Well, no, it's true. I mean, the plant-based and the exercise definitely go hand in hand. And you're a really big advocate of the 5-minute workout, right? Like getting things in when you can, and that not everybody needs to be a triathlete or an ultra runner or a dead weight lifter. There's other options as well.
Thank you for saying that so beautifully, because it's true. It can seem so daunting for people who say, I really should exercise, I really want to get fit, but they can't see how they can progressively or in increments or in easy fashion make that happen. They think of, like you mentioned, that the marathoner or the person who competes or is ultra fit. It's not necessary for all the benefits that fitness can give. So 3 years ago, my first book came out, Fit Quickies. And in the development of that book, I had created a plan whereby, and done tons of research. If you've seen the book, I know you guys have a copy of the book, right? Have you seen Fit Quickies?
Yes, I've seen Fit Quickies, yeah.
Yes, and I did the research to say, well, this is what I've been doing. I'm so busy, I kind of sneak exercise in increments, and I wanted to know what the research said about that as a viable way of being fit, being able to keep muscle strong and shaped, and being able to keep your cardiovascular system conditioned as well. And all the research supported it, and I have excited example after example of how it is. So it's very encouraging, everyone. You don't need to put in an hour and a half of hard running to get cardiovascular benefits. You can do it in 10-minute increments throughout the day. And a specific research that comes to mind is a study that was done with a group of people, 2 groups of people, 3 actually. The control group that didn't do any exercise, the other group that did a daily 10-week, 30-minute cardiovascular exercise. It was moderate, it was walking. And then the other group did 10-minute 30 minutes, but sprinkled into 10-minute increments throughout the day. So at the end of the day, they got their 30 minutes in, but it was just 10 minutes at a time. So did that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. And what they did is tested for results. The results in cardiovascular fitness were matched between the 30 minutes at a time or 30 minutes broken up into 10-minute increments. Everything was a match, but the group that did the increments, 10 minutes each, actually showed better results in BMI or body mass index. And I have my own theory about that. So if we have time, we can go into that. The other thing is, similarly with muscle development, the prevalent feeling out there, like you have to go heavy and you have to keep getting, do really heavy weights to get muscle growth.
For sure.
And the research does not support that. The research says what's important is that you maximize challenge to the muscle within 90 seconds, and that can be done with light, moderate, or even heavy weights. But it is not dependent on a heavy weight. It's dependent on muscle challenge. So the Fit Quickies, which are focused on the muscle challenge more than the cardio, even though I do talk about both of them, I structured and positioned the body into exercise positions where you would, without extra weight, heavier weights that tend to compromise you orthopedically. That means it can stress your joints or it can challenge your safety. But by how you put something together, how you position your body, you can challenge those muscles within that 90-second time frame and get the muscle challenge that you need for fitness and for challenge and for body shaping. Now, if you're an Olympic lifter, you better go for heavy weights. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about the fitness enthusiast and the person that wants to be strong and well-shaped.
Right. It's the person that wants to be healthy and well-shaped. I think there's a huge difference when I have students in my fitness class who are looking at bodybuilders and saying, I want to be that big. I always ask them why. And they're like, well, because it looks cool. And I'm like, but do you think you're going to be functional? Are you going to be able to move? Are you going to be able to be agile? Are you sure that's what you really want? I mean, we could build muscle, but do you need to be that big?
Do they connect with that question? Does it?
For sure. They always, and some guys at the beginning of the year, they come in with that big goal of getting huge. And after having that conversation, a couple weeks later, they'll come back and say, you know what, I've rethought it. And I think you're right. I need to be functional. And maybe let's work on a program that's going to make that a little easier for me. And they move away from the heavier weights. I think it's a huge problem, especially at the teenage level, where they're so focused on mass and getting huge, and they forget about the healthy components of their lives and the functional components of their lives.
And your school's also very academic and driven towards later education and, going for 100 degrees and becoming lawyers and doctors. And I don't know if they understand the time that they need to put in to do that as well.
Right. And that's another thing. They're like, oh, I got to go to the gym for 2 hours. Why do you got to go to the gym for 2 hours? Because that's how long it takes to get big. And like, where are you getting information from?
Yeah.
It's completely incorrect.
Now, what is the school that you're teaching at?
It's a private school in Toronto.
But it is at high school?
Yes, it's high school.
Okay,
high school.
So it's college prep in high school.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Well, what a valuable service you are providing for those young men, as you're describing. It sounds like to give them that point of seeing something differently, and you can just change the course of their health and fitness and make it much more doable for them. And I want to reinforce that what you're underscoring about the research too, that we don't need to lift heavy weights or even get big to be strong and fit. And the research that I provided in Fit Quickies is part of the reason that this is now, the book is a required text in a kinesiology course. And part of that is because the strategies and the techniques of the 5-minute fitness, which is what students can really use, is supported by science. And that was really examined carefully with adoption of this book for the course. So there's another thing that's really important to underscore.
That's a great resource. I'm going to get it into the library in our school. And
that'd be so wonderful.
Yeah, it'll be very useful.
Yay.
So we have a Facebook group called Moms Creating Healthy Families, and I work with the moms in this group in a lot of different ways. It's mostly nutrition-based and plant-based nutrition-based, but we do talk about fitness, we talk about meditation and mental health as well. And this week we have a challenge going on, and it's a 5-minute exercise challenge. And every day I've been posting a different exercise routine or just a few exercises to kind of get them going, and it's basically 5 minutes long. And I find that a lot of the moms really can use these, and they can do them multiple times a day. They don't have to do it only once a day, but they're really struggling to find time to take 45 minutes to work out or take an hour. And I know Adam and I have talked about time in many different podcasts and many different blogs, and we can put those in the show notes. But for when we do feel overwhelmed and we are dealing with so much in our lives, to take the time, they say they feel re-energized, they feel happier. There's so many benefits to taking the time, and I don't think that they'd be doing it any exercise otherwise because they just don't feel like they have the hour to put in.
It's a big misconception that you have to do it all at once. And like you were saying before about the research, as long as you're getting it done throughout the day, that's what's important. And it doesn't have to be an hour.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to see you guys reinforcing that, because that is the big stumbling block for a lot of people, because they see that as too daunting, and then they just, rather than doing anything, they don't do anything. And there's more benefits to this several times throughout the day. One is, yes, you can get muscle strength and development and healthy fitness in that way. But here's the other thing. And with these moms, you were mentioning, Shoshana, that there's a good response in many ways and that they might even do them more often. And that is that doing this several times throughout the day counters another problem, which is sedentarism, where we're sitting for big blocks of time. Now, I know moms are chasing their kids around a lot, but all of us have sat down at a computer and 3 hours later, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And the problems with inactive physiology, as you know, are tremendous. We have all kinds of disease biomarkers that are elevated when we sit for longer than 2-3 hours at a stretch. So when you combine these two, the beauty of being able to get fitness done in shorter times, you also have the benefit of, when you break it up throughout the day, that means you're getting off your more often and getting the benefits of countering this sedentarism effect. And by the way, I wanted to mention before I forget, you were talking about this posting things this week. I have several, all the Fit Quickies I have on downloadable videos, and several of these are just up on YouTube. So I could point those out to you if you'd like to put some of those links up as sample
we'll put those
exercises.
in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'll make a note to myself.
So how can we find the right moments to incorporate your quick quickie?
I know, it's dangerous. Careful.
I can't just say quickies either.
Yeah, I know. So it's kind of fun, though. It gets people laughing.
I'm so tongue-tied
try to
today.
say it 5 times fast or you'll really be in trouble.
But, so how can we find time to incorporate the quick quickie?
The Fit Quickies.
The Fit Quickies.
Yeah, the Fit Quickies is you obviously need to make the time. Now, here's what happens. Or to set aside or chunk it up. For example, someone who has a sedentary job, whether it's at home at their computer, in the office, any place, I have them set a timer on their computer so that after every 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, I'll give you that, you simply get up and stand. If you cannot leave your workstation, guess what? Fit Quickies can be easily done. I'm right here. I'm at my standing workstation at home. I configured my desk at home. I propped it up on some piece of abandoned furniture I found out in that garage. We all have that furniture graveyard in the garage. So it's ergonomically set up, which means it's safe. I got my elbows the right height, but I can stand here and talk to you and actually be standing instead of sitting at a desk. So I can stand up and do, for example, Fit Quickies number 10, which is legs into play, which is the first one I teach everybody, except for 7 seconds of flat belly. That one's very popular. But all it is calf raises. And you know these. I have you stand up straight. You lock your legs straight. You get everything in alignment, which is cornerstone to all the Fit Quickies. And you simply start tapping your heels. So what you're doing is using your heart's peripheral pump, which is your calves, to get the circulation flowing, get oxygen back into the brain and in the blood, and also move the lymph. So think about it. When we've been sitting for a long time, that's when we start getting brain fog and we get sleepy. It's because nothing's moving. You need to get your calves going. And all of Fit Quickies, most of them can be done right there standing at a workstation. So that's one way to sneak them in. So with someone who's busy, maybe the busy moms, what they would need to do is tie it to another cue, like when they're getting, when's putting the coffee on in the morning, or when's it just about time to get the kids in the car and take them to school. What about all these kinds of things? You just figure out, where can I sneak these in and break up and make sure that they happen that way. They can be done brushing your teeth, washing the dishes. I mean, there's ways to. They don't have to be in a perfect gym setting. Very few of them require extra equipment, so it's a good match.
I find that pancake time is a really good time to get some exercise in too, because you have time in between the flips. So you can get down and do plank, or you could do any of these exercises while you're waiting for the flip, and then your flip is your rest and you continue on from there. So pancake time is a big cue for me.
Oh, I like the way you put that, pancake time. And that can refer to actually anytime you're making something with between stirs of the oatmeal pot. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And waiting at the bus for your children, there's no excuse not to be moving then. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always fun to come around the corner and see you doing squats waiting for the bus, or lunges down the street.
Lunges down the street, yeah.
Yeah, and I do these things waiting in lines at the airport, waiting in line at market. People don't notice anything, and everyone's, doing something weird these days anyway, so.
Nobody's come up to you and said, "Excuse me, lady, what are you doing?"
So before we mentioned that you don't need to be a triathlete or an ultra runner or any of those, but for those that are, right, this is not going to work for them. If they are a triathlete, if they are an ultra runner, going to these Fit Quickies is not going to work for them. They still have to train for their sport, right?
Oh, exactly. You can use them for energizing and bursts of brain clarity during the course of the day. But it's like I said earlier, if you're an Olympic lifter, you better be lifting heavy weights. If you are a marathoner, that example of doing 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there of cardio is not going to train you for a marathon. So you want to be sport specific. If you are actually training for an athletic event, your training needs to, in large part, duplicate that. But there are many things that short exercises provide you with that will help facilitate and supplement what you're doing with your training.
Right.
For the listeners who are saying, "I'd love to do that. I know it's going to work for me for 2 days, and then I'm just going to kind of go back to life how it was." What do you suggest to keep them motivated?
Well, this brings up a really important point in that there are specific obstacles to exercise that we know about. And the research tells us that this is good to look at, because even though someone says, "I can make this work," and I certainly have explained exactly how to make that work, and it's all laid out in the Fit Quickies book. But if someone struggles with that, they may be able to look back and see that struggling with exercise, period, has been a problem for them.
We're just going to take a little break here because I want to share with you that growth is something that happens for everyone and every business. And we've been going through a lot of personal and professional growth here at Plant Trainers, and we want to stay connected with you. That's why we're giving away our plant-based comfort food ebook that's worth $14.99 for free at our website at planttrainers.com, or by clicking the link in the show notes. Click on that, get on our newsletter, because we're going to be making some serious changes and you need to be aware of what's going on. We look forward to connecting with you there. And now back to the show.
And this is not an uncommon thing that someone needs to dig deeper in and see what's in their way. One of those is your view of self-efficacy. That means, how do you perceive yourself as an exercise? If you have a long-standing history of starting and stopping exercise programs and not following through, then your confidence in your ability to exercise is directly related to your actually being able to do it. So this is where a support system can make a difference. If you know your history is that I don't last very long, it's probably colored by your confidence in your ability to follow through. So this is why going to a group program, working with a coach, working with a group that you have some kind of, like you said, accountability to. And not only that, not like drill sergeant, but someone who's going to support you and encourage you in the steps that you are taking.
Definitely when I'm working, whether it be my fitness or nutrition clients, I always ask them about what they've tried in the past, what's worked, what hasn't, what's failed, and we try to see what the patterns are to try to undo the patterns. And a lot of times it's just that they didn't have either the right person working with them, or they didn't have anyone working with them and they felt completely alone and there was no way to be able to move forward for them. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into it as well, for sure.
There is. And other things we need to consider is if people are self-conscious about their appearance, they're less likely to put themselves in a situation where they are in a group exercise class. If they, I bet you uncover their negative self-talk that they have too, poor body image, or if they say they don't have time, then there's specific ways to work with that. So you have to point out to them. That's where it starts to lead into the other thing, is people having a personal connection with what they're doing.
confidence and mindset are all huge factors in getting people on track. And for those that are not able to turn that corner alone, obviously there's help out there and support. But just remember, what you're going to do today, your future self is going to thank you for. So find a way to make things positive and go in that direction. And it all starts with one step in front of the other.
Lani, why do you think people haven't made it a priority to have fitness as part of their daily routines?
I think that really our busy culture has created an obstacle. At the same time, some of the fittest people I know are those that are the busiest. So there's not a direct correlation. You can't just say because they're so busy that they don't have time. Because as you guys know, being more fit actually gives you more ability to accomplish your other tasks more efficiently and better, and gives everything a better tone. Especially if people are out of condition and they've never experienced it before, they really are, the more sedentary you are, the more sedentary you can become. It like takes on an inertia of its own. And to get started exercising, if you have been out of commission for a while, is uncomfortable at first. It can hurt to challenge a muscle, not in a damage hurt kind of way, but in just the effort of getting your body up and going. Like if you've had a long layoff, you know that the challenges are deeper. It feels good to get back out there. But if you don't have the connection with what it felt like to be fit and energetic before, it can be important to have someone to help lead you forward and congratulate you, as you just said, on the smaller increments. And there's an example I would like to in the plant-based journey. I talk about obstacles to all kinds of things with moving forward, and I talk about how to become an active person. And because I address fitness in the book too, I always address the food and the fitness and the frame of mind. But if it becomes to becoming steps to become an active person, you kind of have to start where you are. And I remember a specific client named Sandra, and we were on the phone, and she said, I want to change my diet. I know I need to move my body, but I weigh 300 pounds. I've been sedentary for years. I have a sedentary job. I spend most of my time, I'm paraphrasing her on this, reclining or sitting, and it hurts to exercise. How can I change this? What can I do? So she was coming from that standpoint of seeing what it takes to be fit, kind of looking across the Grand Canyon and where you are right now. So I like to show people or help them find what's the next reach that you can make, the smallest incremental reach that you can make in the direction that you want to go. And I asked her, well, can you stand? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, how about today you stand for 5 minutes? Could you do that? And she said, yeah. Now, here's the thing. Many people would say, oh, great, standing for 5 minutes. What's that going to do? But guess what? For Sandra, she started with that. Then she started standing for 10 minutes. By the end of the month, she was walking 30 minutes every day. And she was down 100 pounds in the course of the year. And it all started because she wasn't afraid to see standing for 5 minutes as having value.
That's amazing. And we do need to find people where they are. And I seem to have a problem with the Fitbit. I definitely see all the positives with the Fitbit, but what gets me is that people who are completely sedentary and who have trouble maybe standing for 5 minutes or walking for 10 minutes, they're trying to reach that same goal as everybody else straight off the bat. So that 10,000 steps, people are saying, but I can't reach the 10,000 steps. Well, when you're only used to doing, maybe 500 a day, going straight to 10,000 it's too much. We need to set our goals where people can actually reach them and achieve them and work from there instead of fail on a daily basis.
Well, is there a program, an app out there that does start with smaller increments as a reach? Or because I'm not familiar, I don't have a Fitbit.
I don't have one either. I'm sure that there is, but I know my clients are coming to me and saying, "How can I make my 10,000 steps?" And I'm saying, well, how many have you gotten for the last, few days? And if it's only like 6,000 and some change, I'm like, well, let's work towards 7,000. Yeah. And, I think you could just make that up in your head, right? Like you don't need an app to do that really. But
and they may have come from 1,000 steps a day. And
exactly.
I'm sure you point that out to them. Sounds like you guys are just
we need to celebrate what you are doing, not feel regret for what you haven't been doing. Absolutely. So the summer is coming and people's routines are going to start to be distorted because of vacations, because their children are not in school anymore. So what can people do to make sure that they stick with their fitness routines throughout the year, throughout the summer?
Well, the one good thing about this that we should remember is with the weather improving, that means there's more opportunity to be outside and doing things in nature, which, as we know, the research even tells us that exercising in nature is even a better brain boost than exercise in an enclosed area. It's an opportunity to do things with the family. I know it's staying dark, much later out here now. So we were able to, for example, go back out onto the canals after dinner because I wasn't getting to check on the trout. So we were riding our bikes at 7:30 in the evening, and that we couldn't do in the winter. So there's more invitation to be outside. I know that there are also some adults, just like kids, like to be involved in sports and activities and do team sports. So if that's something that appeals to you, you can do that. Everyone can get outside and walk, whether you live in the city or whether you live in the country. That's a basic, as you know, for just being a good animal is to get out and walk every day. So these are all ways that you just find which one of the activities you like. It's a good time for swimming. It's all kinds of things open up with the summer weather.
It's such a great time to get the family together, like you mentioned. And after dinners, we like to take our kids for a walk or we go to the park. And it's just such a good time to bond as a family. And I think more people need to take advantage of those times if they can find them.
Yes, and I think it's also an important thing because it gives parents an opportunity to model behavior. Because as you know, the kids don't do what we say, they do what we do. And if you are being active and expressing a value in being in the outdoors and moving your body and having a good time with it, then that's going to follow suit with your kids.
What can people start doing today? What's your message to people to start being more active?
Start getting one foot in front of the other, whether it's indoors or outdoors, just to be sure that you get some walking time in. And I this is a good time to emphasize too that, and I'll talk more about that, but I want to be sure that we sneak in the information about the value of exercise beyond what most people think, which is helping me burn calories, get a stronger body, get a stronger heart, maybe improve my figure. And exercise does all those things beautifully, but it misses the lead with what exercise, the true value, and that is what it does for your brain. Because as soon as you start putting one foot in front of the other, there's this biochemical cascade, as you know, that starts with you physiologically, and that mixes with a protein in your brain called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is an essential element for building new neurons and making new cells for connections in your brain, for neuroplasticity, for learning new things. So that's another reason to get out and do some walking or some moving about every day. So that's the first thing I say is get yourself the thing that takes the least amount of equipment. And if it seems like a real reach for you to go on a walk from what you're currently doing, then I suggest, as I said, make the micro changes that are going to move you in that direction. Get your clothes out that you're going to need for walking in the night before, so it's by the door, so they're all ready for you. And if it's too much to start walking, then for the first week, just make sure your clothes are out there every day in the morning. You don't even have to put them on or walk yet. That's an incremental change that I've had people make that gets them in the walking mode. Then from there, they go into putting on their clothes and then finally out the door. So it's building one practice upon another. So that's back in the extreme. If you're going from doing nothing to doing something. If it seems too daunting to get out there and go do a 20-minute walk, just start with getting ready and build from there.
So those listeners who are just starting out, I encourage you when this podcast is over to make your plan. What is your step going to be tomorrow? Is it going to be taking out the clothes?
Yeah.
Is it going to be standing? Is it going to be walking? Is it going to be running? What do you need to start or what do you need to go further? And just reassess your goals and start from there. So you mentioned your other book, The Plant-Based Journey, and we've talked about Fit Quickies. Is there anything else exciting coming up for you in the future?
Yes, I have just signed for my next book, which is, I mentioned this earlier, the food, the fitness, and the frame of mind. And my first book, Fit Quickies, focused on fitness, as that's my, I have so much background in that. Yet, when I signed with Penguin Publishing for that book, I said, okay, I'm happy to do the exercises. They came to me and said, we'd like you to do a book on your exercises. I said, certainly, but it has to include the plant-based nutrition and the frame of mind need to be included. Otherwise, it's not an honest picture of what it really takes for not only a healthy, happy life, but lifestyle change. Then from there, the plant-based journey came along, which focuses primarily on the 5 universal steps of transition to plant-based nutrition. But then again, I said we need to include the chapter on fitness because of what it does for your brain and your body, and also the frame of mind. And now, yay, this book is going to focus on the mindfulness aspect and all of that for effective change and for living a healthy, happy lifestyle with plant-based nutrition and moving your body.
The perfect trilogy.
Yeah, it is.
Congratulations and good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
Before we let you go, Lani, you mentioned BMI earlier, and it's gotten in my head, and I'd like to get your take on that because you said you'd if we'd have time, you'd share that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, and actually, we have the perfect background for this now. Remember, and we just finished this conversation about how when you start moving your body, put one foot in front of the other, you get this response in your body that builds brain power.
Yeah.
Okay. It also, as you know, boosts and elevates mood, boosts optimism. Anytime you start to exercise, who doesn't finish exercise and feel better after they're done? I'm so glad I took that walk. Oh, I'm so glad I went to that class. Or thank goodness I got up and moved my body, because we feel refreshed in the brain. So that's my reflection on that research, where that there was a group, remember, the control group did nothing. Then there was a group that did 30 minutes in one stretch. And then there was the other group that broke up that 30 minutes into 3 10-minute increments. Well, they had not only similar results in terms of their fitness, but they had that decreased body mass index. Now, whether that's a boost in their metabolism frequently throughout the day, that could be it. Or here's what I'm thinking. Since they were being active more often, they were getting that mental boost that was giving them more interest in picking healthier food choices, being more active through the day, all those things that result in a positive shift in body composition. So it's not in the research, but that's the first thing I saw. I thought, okay, their brains are better tuned in to being an active human being and all the other things that go with healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, it's like a symphony, right? Everything's got to come together. It's not just one isolated thing that's going to make a difference in the change. Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Cool.
We'd like to thank you so much for being on the Plant Trainers podcast today and sharing your amazing, brilliant ideas with us and our listeners. And I'm sure that people got amazing ideas that they could start using right now.
And of course, we're going to link to everything you talked about, your books and your site, and in our show notes. And is there anywhere that people can actually contact you directly?
Yes, you can go to my website, has a contact form, and that's how a lot of people reach out to me. And the website is my name, LaniMuelrath.com. You said you would be linking that anyway. Yeah. But if people don't remember the name or how to spell it, theplantbasedjourney.com is another place to go, or fitquickies.com. They all take you to the same website.
Okay, great. We'll link to all that in the show notes.
Well, thank you so much I'm honored that you reached out to me, and very excited to be part of your process here. And thank you for the work you are doing.
Thanks you so much,
Lani.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform.
We really appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it really helps other people find us just like you did.
Thanks so much to our patrons. To become a patron, visit us at patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with with $1 really makes a difference in the quality of the show.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at planttrainers.com for awesome recipes, a list of our services, and of course, our latest podcast.
We encourage you to email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so that we can help you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness.
So we hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time
and have a healthy day.
Or is that too corny?
It's a little cheesy.